Krzywo siedzę, ale...
Hey!
Hello!
In the house.
Hey, Roman.
It's great to see you.
Great to see you. You're looking fantastic.
The same to you.
Hi.
Hello.
Jak tam u was? Wszystko dobrze? Zdrowi? To numer 1, nie?
Mamy.
Tak jest. Zdrowi i aktywni, jak widać.
Yeah.
Okay.
Witamy.
Witamy.
Cześć Marek.
Cześć, witam wszystkich. Hej.
Roland. Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Roland. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Oh.
My lovely Bydgoszcz, yes?
I don't want to worry anyone, but it looks like the guy leading the session isn't in the session. Don't worry. If he doesn't turn up, I nominate Radek to run the session.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. Noted.
No pressure, Radek. No pressure.
thanks for your vote of confidence.
Hey Herb.
Hej, cześć. Dzień dobry. Hello.
Hello.
Mówimy po polsku dzisiaj?
Możemy.
There you go. There's a note from Elias right now. He's saying why
Elias, right.
there's no one in the studio.
Why is there no one in the studio? Oh.
Elias is asking the questions.
I think we have 10 people in.
Mhm. Yep.
Oh wait, it says, do you mind leaving the session? The moderator cannot join.
We are too many people in this session.
Okay,
Is
I'll
it?
log on. No problem. I've gone. Ciao. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Cheers.
It's quite short, huh?
That's funny.
Still too much, right?
No, I think it was like two moderators, something like with the permissions, and so I think she will allow him in now.
You can switch the permission as well. Switch off the moderator. Where to check it?
Well, there is this Rossi person who I think is managing this. It's on the chat.
How can you repeat? Sorry.
I think there is this Rossi person who you can see on the live chat what's happening. She's trying to allow Elias in, and they're facing some problems.
So we are still waiting.
How does it work?
Mhm.
So that will be mute session. Looking at that.
Yeah, okay.
Which can be also advantage if you look at the artist movie, right? There was also, I mean, without too much words.
It was a success, you're right.
Yes.
Well, let's hope they will resolve it very quickly.
Mhm.
Hello, everyone.
No.
Hello.
Hello.
Some time to figure out how to turn the camera on.
Yeah, I think we're back to 9 out of 9. So I think
We need a space for Elias. I will just leave and try to rejoin, perhaps. Let's see, because
There are 3 sessions of 9 and we are 60. I don't know how it can work.
All right. Success.
Okay.
Elias, welcome.
Yes. Hi.
We can see you and hear you, so that's good.
Okay. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. Just because I thought a second screen on this, gentlemen, so I'm not sure whether it's working. But anyway, let's forget about it. Let's get on with a conversation. Thank you for joining. Before we start a bigger discussion, of course, my good old friend Romek, he still works for the wrong company, but he's a great man. He put a couple of questions to us, and there are people out there that actually say that COVID is the final nail in the coffin for location. I really love this. I really love this because something happens during 10 months, and we imagine that the world started turning differently. Now, let's look at some facts. We have seen lesser announcements globally of new BSCs being opened. It reduced by half. That is absolutely in parallel with the overall reduction of net cash investments of companies globally. So nothing wrong, you would say. I think we can even say, if you look at the Central and Eastern Europe, we did slightly better than many of the other geographies. So I think that, like Romek said, I think it was back in March in another session with Tom, he said the industry will grow. He repeated that today. And relatively speaking, we suffered less. We continued growing, albeit at a lower level. So that's one point. I also think location is not dead, because let's look at other examples. Remember, some of us, like Romek and I, we are old enough and the rest of you are too young, but there was the oil crisis in 1973. Roads were deserted. We thought we'd really switch over to renewable energies within 5 years. It actually took 2 decades. And just yesterday, for the first time in history, in the European Union, there was greater reliance on renewable energy than on fossil fuels. That's almost, what is it? Many years later. But you might say, all crisis, we're living in a new economy. Okay, let's go to the new economy. Remember the SARS epidemic that really closed down, locked down countries in Asia? Economies came to a grinding halt. Airports, railway stations, offices, they were all deserted. It was probably the end of the world as the Asians might have experienced that. But we all know that Asia came back with a vengeance. So looking at these 2 examples, people thought the world changed radically. Let's be humble and say, well, it changed at all. And so for those proponents that location will be ending as a result of COVID, I say, well, let's take a history lesson. And indeed, if Romek is right, by summer vacation, we'll all be over. Now, I actually have prepared a couple of slides that I can share, but ironically, I think Romek must be able to look at my computer because they respond to exactly the second bullet is remote is not the remedy. I'm not going to get into details, but let's consider a fact that there's a McKinsey study out there that's of April last year that shows that talent has always concentrated around major economic and educational centers. That's history. McKinsey knows that some things might change as a result of COVID, but basically that the talent pools will remain concentrated. So I think accessing wider talent pools, because remote is the new remedy, I'm not sure. I'm not at all sure about that. So what does this all mean for business service centers in the CEE? Well, I think, yes, we are going to look for more resilience. We are going to look for setting up a secondary satellite. And that will lead to problems, because what we did see last year is that more than ever, companies located in Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities, that of Colliers, is that there's not a lot of real estate. another footprint optimization challenge is indeed the cultural proximity to market serves. It is about empathy now that the computers can do all the standard stuff through AI, RPA, machine learning. It is about humans, but how do we really bring them up to speed on the empathy that is needed? It's a question that must be answered as you optimize your footprint. So looking at cultural DNA, in addition to educational skills, in addition to people skills, will be more important. The only problem is that most companies have never done this before. So these are a couple of the challenges that I would see out there. And I'd like to get your views on that. But before we do, I mentioned that CEE was steady in this COVID crisis, that teams do well, that tier 3 and do well, as an example. Well, we've got with us here, we got Edyta Wybratowska, the CEO of the Bydgoszcz Regional Development Agency. And Edyta, you are responsible for the development of such a tier 3 city. And could I invite you and your team just to very briefly give us some insights. What is it like to be a tier 3 city on the hunt for business service centers? Edyta, tell us.
Thank you very much, Elias. Hello to everyone. My name is Edyta Wybratowska. This is Michał Kornacki. We are representing the city of Bydgoszcz and the agency responsible for providing the service for new investment projects in the city. So this topic is very interesting for us. We would like to find out the impact of global current trends on your business, on sector, on Polish market, and the challenges and opportunities for such locations as Bydgoszcz. Michael will do the rest.
Yeah. In our opinion, what are the chances, or maybe what are the alternatives in terms of choosing the locations, especially bearing in mind a different reality we all live in, and probably will be still living in for a few more months, hopefully not years. We have some supporting materials to do that study, and let me start with some short information that might be interesting for you all. Well, in terms of tier 3 cities like Bydgoszcz, like what are the key selling points? What are the key distinguishers? Well, in our opinion, for the city like Bydgoszcz, those are specialization. In terms of the Bydgoszcz, it's definitely the IT. We have success stories of number of BPOs, SST sectors that already decided to deliver here their operation and serve global market. And last but not the least, cost. It's always about the cost to some extent. And we hear that message, we hear that argument from almost all of the investors that are turning to a city like Bydgoszcz. So let me start from the cost from the beginning. City like Bydgoszcz, even without touching any incentives and any additional funds you can get from different sources, gives you a 10% advantage in terms of the salaries comparing to a Polish average. And let's compare it to places like Warsaw. The difference is almost 30%. So just moving 3 hours drive from the main hub, you're getting 30% upfront, and that's something that you can starting with at the beginning. And talking about the specialization, sometimes tier 3 cities are not always appreciated in terms of their quality. We have more than 11,000 people working for the business, but look at the specialization in IT, for example. 80% from that mass is actually relating to IT, 8,500 people. That's almost double what you have in Poznań. That's almost equal what you have in Łódź, which is almost twice size of Bydgoszcz. So those are the information, those are the market that are worth to explore to when you're choosing a decision about your next operation, your next branch. And this is mainly the companies that discover that already and taking advantage out of it. And let me just give you one example as a success story of Atos, which came to Bydgoszcz in 2000, starting their operation only with 6 people. Today, they have one single biggest location in the world in Bydgoszcz with 4,000 people. and they just announced that they will not only grow in terms of numbers, but they will grow in terms of quality. And they decided to introduce their main R&D operation related to cloud and artificial intelligence, hiring more than 500 people in that single location. Those are the success stories that you can experience when considering cities from the tier 3 like Bydgoszcz. And we would like to hear your opinion about your take on those type of activities in the cities like Bydgoszcz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edita. Thank you very much, Michał, for sharing. We have a number of people on the panel, and I think we will definitely refer to Bydgoszcz in greater detail. But to the point, I mean, so we've got two consultants. I mean, the mercenaries of capitalism, like Romek and myself, that said that location is not dead, but we've got other people on this call. We've got other friends like Radek in Poznan. Radek, you've been working in different cities through Poland. You've had global experience. In your opinion, how wrong are Romek and I? Is location dead?
Look, in my opinion, location is very much alive. And going back to what was said earlier, given that we're moving towards making greater use of remote working, creating the right atmosphere in terms of the cultural DNA of the organization becomes very important. And the question is, how do we create that? So the office location and the attractions of that location become, in my mind, even more paramount in terms of creating something unique in order to attract those individuals. And I can give you a very, sort of, recent examples. Poznan is probably a good, location to talk about. You've got two key locations in Poznan. You've got several offices going up in the city center itself, and you've got an office park going outside. And the question was that, we recently went through a rent review process, and there was an option for us to move to another location. And we went through quite a large exercise to sort of determine, should we stay where we are or should we choose another location? And the biggest, let's say, finding of that exercise is that people appreciate, for example, the proximity of our current location to all the let's say, the city attractions of being in the middle of the city, having the convenience of all the transport, the convenience of the restaurants, convenience of, being able to go out on lunch and get something done. So, location, the attractiveness of location, the creating of the cultural DNA becomes even more paramount when we're talking about moving towards greater use of remote working.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, loud and clear. I'm not sure why the video is off. I really shaved and washed my hair to do this. So, in fact, thank you for indeed endorsing it. You mentioned that location is not dead. You focused on the people factor. Simon, you've been active in this business for a long time. How do you see the location pattern evolving? Is this something that indeed you have seen in your conversations and in your own business, that companies are looking into secondary, tertiary locations, or are we very much sticking to the beaten path? What's your view?
So, first of all, our experience is even to convince our clients to move to Eastern Europe. That's what we're dealing with, not to move to second or third tier locations. And in this respect, actually COVID helps a lot. So right now what we see is that a lot of, well, I'm working right now in Freestyle, but Freestyle gets mainly the clients from Switzerland or the DACH region. We are serving the companies which did not have an experience with shared service centers and outsourcing. And therefore, for them, a COVID and remote work is an opening eye experience where they're learning that remote work is possible, and actually the work can be done from different locations than they headquarters and they office in Switzerland. So from this perspective, it allows us actually to convince them to move the processes to Eastern Europe instead of keeping them in Switzerland or the DACH. So from this perspective, I see COVID and the whole lockdown as a really big chance for Eastern Europe and of course also for us, for Frista. Regarding the location, what we are right now considering is also other locations within the Eastern Europe, like Ukraine, which when I really started to analyze Ukraine, I was a little bit also forced by some of our clients putting this idea on the table. If you look at the price difference between Ukraine and Poland, it's huge currently. So the potential savings could be enormous for our clients. So one thing what we're considering right now, and this is regardless of current COVID situation, is to utilize more opportunities in Ukraine and the cost base and the cost difference. On the other hand, also right now having or planning quite aggressive expansion in the next 5 years. Yes, we do considering opening some offices in other locations. It's only a question if we need an office space and the office big enough to accommodate all the people, for example, in Bydgoszcz or in Poznań, or we just make a base, a small office, and to have people around this office working remotely. And this we already have an example in Rzeszów. One of our competencies is actually Magento in e-com and e-com development, and we learned that in Warsaw it's extremely difficult to find specialists in Magento, where in Rzeszów there is plenty of people. So we opened the office in Rzeszów, and actually we built the whole organization in Rzeszów, hiring specialists who do not even need a physical office. So this is so I see the future. First of all, in Eastern Europe because of COVID. Second, I see also the future for smaller locations in Poland, like Bydgoszcz, Poznań, Rzeszów, and I also see quite big potential right now in Ukraine. This is my view.
Maybe to break a rule. So maybe to break a rule and do not wait for you, Elias, to actually have a kind of, let's say, school approach that you asked and then we answer. I would like to chip into what Szymon has said, because in my experience so far, actually, there's two fundaments actually to talk on the location. Is accessibility and also the talent, right? That's what Szymon has mentioned, right? So based on the example of Bydgoszcz for the number of few years, for the number of recent years, they invested actually significantly to improve the infrastructure, accessibility. Also, you can see all the roads, let's say, which are being undertaken, and also proximity to the airport, etc. That create accessibility from international, let's say, network or community. So I believe truly that this linked with the talent and talent development creates a good base for the location. And obviously there will be some niches to the point of Szymon, that there are some talent pools in the smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities. But I truly believe that actually, if you want to attract, if you want to leverage as well your organizations for the next maturity levels, if you want to re-engineer the processes, you also need to have a multicultural vibe, and also you need to attract the talents, not only local ones which you mobilize to join your company, but also international with international cultures, etc. And that's to the point, I think, what Radek has mentioned, to the point of obviously all of us. So from the location determination, accessibility, talent pool, and also the international piece will help. And I think we are all positioned quite well in Eastern Europe, or actually Central and Eastern Europe, to actually leverage from COVID, because we all proved that we can work remotely, virtually. But I truly believe that at the end of the day, also the culture is driven from the office perspective. So there must be an office. There must be probably in a smaller location, office which is able to capable, let's say, the local teams, but also the other colleagues to stimulate, to streamline, to talk, to engage, reshape the processes as such ones. Sorry, I jumped, but I thought it's better maybe from interactiveness as well of this session, just not to wait, hey, Marek, your opinion, but just to tell a few things, right?
Marek, you did just right. And I think the two of you are launching interesting points. I'd like to get back to what you said, but also to what Szymon said. Szymon, you mentioned indeed growth. You mentioned looking at Ukraine. But tying between what Marek said and what you said, I mean, how about the onboarding factor? I mean, how can we actually grow a company in Ukraine if there are travel restrictions, if there are national lockdowns? And let's just assume that these lockdowns are going to be in and out with us for at least the next 8 to 12 months, unfortunately. But then how can you realize your growth objectives if indeed physical proximity, which Marek also subscribed to, may be very difficult to realize for the transition? And there's some other, let me be academic once again, Marek, but I think there is some good research out there. And it shows that actually efficiency of transformation, the efficiency of migration processes actually works better if people can spend physical time together, as opposed to trying to do it all via Zoom. So Szymon, your growth plans, and I'm happy to hear that your company is successful, but will it be like slowed down because of the pandemic? How do you see that happening?
No, actually, but actually in contrary. So we just expanded like 50% during the COVID. So
I can't hear you.
Oh.
Can anybody hear Szymon?
Right now?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah, we can hear.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Elias, yes, okay. So I think I just cannot. Elias, do you hear me? Okay, I maybe try to answer to all of you except.
We can hear you.
Go ahead.
But I think it's okay. Okay, so there are actually a few elements in the answer. So first is we actually were quite successful during the COVID, and we see a COVID as a really big chance. And I can, because we work with new businesses, so with new clients, we see that remote work for those businesses in Switzerland, in DACH region, is an opening eye exercise. They see that it's possible not to have people in the headquarters. So because of it, it enables us to convince them that instead of having a person at home in Basel, instead of head office, they have a person in Poland at home or in Warsaw office. So this is first, because of it, I see that there is a potential to further move positions from Western Europe to Eastern Europe. So this is one. Second is that the onboarding, it's actually also, this depends on what stage of development you have and what kind of establishment you already have. So to start a new location like Ukraine, for sure, with travel restrictions and to start it from scratch, this would be really difficult, especially when we are starting this with a team who will be constructed fully in Ukraine. So Ukraine manager, Ukraine staff, all guys, Ukraine. So this is difficult. And of course, in such a circumstances, we would be quite reluctant and probably will not start as fast. But If we have a manager from Frista, some insiders, already the guys who have our values, and we put them in some particular location, whatever in the world, and they start to establish the office, either virtual or not virtual, then it works. So this is first, my idea. Second is that it's also depends of what kind of work it's performed. It's much easier to create virtual teams when you have project work than a process work. Mm. And for project work, it's actually most of the teams are virtual. So right now, I think you also have the experience. You have SAP consultants all over the world, and they work on one project. And you have more and more projects which are realized by the global teams all around the world without one physical location. So in this area, I think it's already well developed, and you don't need physical office, and you don't even need a cultural edge, because you're just focusing on the project itself. And it is still possible to transmit some of the culture throughout even the virtual conversation teams. And then it's the processes which are transactional processes. And again, we experienced that it is feasible to create a team to make an onboarding. As I said, during the COVID, we employed 70 people, 2020. A lot of them, half, I did not meet most of them. Maybe they met our HR and they never came to our office, or they maybe came to sign the agreement, but that's it. And they manage virtually, and we do even an online onboarding, transition. So we take over the processes from our clients online, and this is possible. So I think it's a matter of leadership first, and this cultural edge, which and the culture within the organization, and the leaders who are also implementing this culture among their teams. But I still think that through teams, when you have weekly, daily meetings with your colleagues, you can transmit these values of respecting each other, of productivity, but also creativity, etc. So I think it's possible. I don't see such a big constraint in working virtually instead of working physically. Although, just to end, I see that from the client's perspective, especially the ones who are conservative and always worked within one office, for them it's still difficult to accept that everything is done in Poland. And when they learn that people are not sitting together, but they, at home, they have a concern if somebody is supervising them. So it's also a matter of what kind of thinking we have toward our people, what kind of trust we have toward our people, and what kind of leadership style we represent. But the more turquoise organization we have, the more independence we gave to our people, the less we need this physical presence to monitor. And anyway, you have such a great monitoring tools right now. That is really possible to make sure that the guys are going into good direction. Sorry, it was quite long.
No, I was just curious, if I could ask, Szymon. So what was the key success elements in your onboarding journey? Because you mentioned that there's quite significant number of people in the new location, etc. So how you managed to ensure that once you did online onboarding, it's successful also with landing physically people in the new setup, right? With understanding a bit of culture, etc. So can you share here a little bit?
Yes. So first of all, we did not create a separate location yet.
Oh, okay.
So this we are considering to make in Ukraine, and also to expand in the further years among Poland. But the onboarding question is relevant, because we onboarded quite a lot of people, and the onboarding almost entirely was conducted online. And what we have, and I think most of you have it as well, but we're using lean methodology and the whole strategic lean. which really is a little bit an autopilot for the organization itself and for the leaders, that, you know, as an organization, if we're using Lean properly, together with the daily board meetings and with KPIs, with having cascade, having our goals, strategic goals cascaded into the particular KPIs and the targets of the teams. And when people are trained properly within those Lean methodology rules, it is working itself. I can just say that, but this is a kind of set of rules, especially set of values, which we have within our organization, which are obeyed by our leaders. And then they put it into the framework. So all the teams are put into the framework of strategic Lean. And it actually, it works with a success. So as I said, even with the onboarding of the new clients, we had 3 really big Swiss groups who did not do the outsourcing before, and right now, and we're already live, and it's with a success. So I would recommend the Lean methodology and the strategic Lean as a management system, which actually is, from my perspective, extremely comprehensive and complete system to run operations.
Elias, if I might have a question to you, actually, I don't know if you're with me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, from your perspective, from your global clients, do you see any shift in the location strategy? Do you see maybe some closer location being chosen for the expansion, or are they go traditionally simple process to Far East? Do you see any changes in that?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, Michal. Thank you, because things are evolving. Are they radically changing? No. We got a live project on our hand. It's more than 8,000 people worldwide across all kinds of functions, but with all type of capabilities as well. From the more traditional transactional finance, HR, IT is in there. A lot of that can still be put in APAC. But what I also see in some of these projects is that there's more emphasis on value-added interactive services. So we're looking at language capabilities that are important. We're looking at the culture factor that Marek also brought up. And we're looking at time zone proximity as well, because you may find people that speak English, but if they're not in the same time zone, people want instant satisfaction, and businesses need to react very fast. So your internal processes must be within like 2 to 3 hours time zone difference of the markets that you're serving. And the interesting thing is that leads companies to still locate in many of the same capitals and secondary and tertiary cities of Central Europe and other marketplaces. I do see that for Central Europe, there is companies are increasingly looking at Cairo as well, which is in the same time zone. It has lower cost, but it's not either or, it's and. They are evolving their centers or the activities in new centers in Central Europe, Central Eastern Europe, like Marek corrected me, to a higher level, and they still want the capability and the capacity to do the lower value adding, but very much needed transactional work. So the change is that there is more attention for higher value work, for business intelligence, and that is growing in the centers that have robust ecosystems or very agile workforces. And I'd like to respond with a question to you, if I might, because Marek was talking about that we could now reach out to talent anywhere. But you opened your opening statement, Michal, was about that you guys are just not that far away from Warsaw. But isn't that a threat? Because if I would set up a let's say, a 350 people center in Warsaw, and half of it is value add people, and the other are more transactional, where I can do the induction, what did Romek call the onboarding in a very relatively easy way. Then wouldn't I just come and check the LinkedIn of everybody who works in Bydgoszcz and call them and say, hey, you can work from home, but you will be part of, say, Colliers International Warsaw office. Is that a threat, or how do you guys handle that?
Maybe I can share my experience. I'm representing COTI, which is leading.
I'm afraid I cannot hear Roland.
Oh, you cannot hear me?
Why that is?
No, it's okay.
Yes. So, and I had no problem with this. For us, we have a very international group of people working also from different locations. We are serving the whole Europe. And but what Elias mentioned, time zone is quite important, because in my previous shared service, RBS, for example, it was important because we are working with India and US, and at COTI we are working with Kuala Lumpur and New York also, a part of Europe, of course. And from your opinions, already explained by many of you, I think there is no one prescription, because I was managing shared services in Warsaw, in Kraków, but also in Bydgoszcz. And every shared service has different advantages. And for example, it was a pleasure for me to be in Bydgoszcz, because there was a manufacturing facility, and the culture of company was very closed. Yes, we could see the business as a shared service. The same German partner was located in Bremerhaven, not so big city near Hamburg, and there was very good what was mentioned, accessibility, very good connection by Lufthansa from Bydgoszcz to Hamburg. So in all these cases, I think, as you correctly mentioned, all these points, but I think this is important. What is chosen by the client? Yes, if client has facility somewhere, and it's close to it, it's not bad. There's interlinkage between. Accessibility, for example, my two Warsaw locations were because of airport and because of scale. RBS was 1,060 people, for example. So it was really very big, and probably in some smaller cities I will have troubles to run multifunctional facility like this. In Kraków there was British Airways flying from Kraków to London, and this was one of the part of the holding. So all these companies had different main focus when choosing this. The talent is important, of course, because in big cities it can be differentiated. But for example, in Łódź, I had no problem to hire people. Another point, and this big plus for Bydgoszcz, was that we are not so anonymous as in Warsaw. In Warsaw are hundreds of shared services. In Bydgoszcz, I was really feeling also very good cooperation with agency, which is represented here. And it was really a pleasure, because we have market, access to the market, access to the media. So there's finalizing, there's no one prescription. And for example, I will return to Bydgoszcz with great pleasure, because it was a really great time.
Of course, you've done our invitation, Roland.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And also, like, that adds up to what Elias asked. I mean, we see this whole new reality as an opportunity for us, actually, for starting an even smaller operation, the regional location like Bydgoszcz. So doesn't necessarily means that the headquarters has to move to other location. No, doesn't even necessarily mean that the decision has to be made to rent out an office for 5 years long. Actually, decision to build a remote team in the location like tier 3 city with availability of like co-working spaces at the moment, flexible office arrangements, which allows you to rent up even for an hour an office, but rent it out for short term, for flexible term, and have a place to get 1 week team gathering and build a team from that point. And then even as a trial to see if maybe it will work for me in a half year. If it works, maybe I will actually establish more presence and I will put my logo somewhere on the building just to highlight my presence. But that opens up an option, and I think lower risk version of expansion for companies like yourself.
We've been talking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
We've been talking a lot about location, but we've been talking about talent. We've been talking about real estate. We have been talking about company motives. And Michał, you know me for a long time, more than 10 years. What is it?
Something like that.
Yeah, here comes the question. And I'd like to put the question to Hervé Hachette of Amos Sports, if I may.
Yes,
In
I'm
these
listening.
times, yes, in these times of pandemic, of unforeseen external elements, is there anything that we as an industry can reasonably expect from local authorities like the one of Edita and Michał, or wherever your location is in the world, in Central Europe? What can the authorities do for us? Or should we really say, well, they have enough problems already, we should solve our own problems? What's your view, Hervé?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the question. And it's very interesting conversation. I took note from your really good point from all of you. So, but I am not maybe the best person to speak about local authorities, because since where we are in January, since March last year, I am running my center in Krakow from France. So
this, sorry to interrupt you, but this is even more. I think everybody wants to know how you do it. Because I will run this conference. I will run it from the Bahamas next year.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I mean, if it would be only me, I would be maybe in Thailand or something. But fortunately, I have a family and kids are going to the school still.
Of course, but this is great because this is a mission impossible, and still you're doing it. And
yeah,
you see that in your city where you have your center, that there's any type of support outreach. Do they call you? Are you happy? Can we help you? Or
yeah. No, of course, in Krakow, you all know that we have this association called Aspire, and we are communicating with the authorities on the regular basis. But apart, let's say, of the transportation or things like that, there is not that much support from the support. I don't know if I can say so, but there is not that much relation between authorities and our business. Finally, the things didn't change that much. As people are staying at home, so the center is closed. Still March. Since March last year. So everybody is at home. We were planning to open back in April, but now I am not even sure that we can do it due to the situation. I don't know. So, but we prefer to say to everybody, okay, just stay at home, so you can even give back your apartment. I have a lot of students. You can give back your apartments, return to your parents, because we will not need you in the office.
Okay.
And maybe something I wanted to say about what said Shimon about. Of course, the let's say distance working or online working is working. It's working. This is the right term. It's working. So we can do onboarding online. We can do transition online. We are doing it also. Recruitment online, everything online. It is working, but not more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the feeling that I have now mercenaries in the center, and I am afraid about the feeling of belonging to a family, to this cool atmosphere that we had in the office, So I don't know. I am not convinced by this online working. Of course, I will take advantage of the situation because previously, even before the COVID, we were used to work from home. Let's say 10, 20% of the people were working from home for any reason, just at their convenience. I think we can go a little bit more, 30, 40%, but after that, I think we are reaching a limit where, right, it is working, we can do it, but not more. We are losing some kind of motivation, some maybe this contact, yeah, when we are going to the office and drinking a cup of coffee and having direct contact. I am working in my apartment since 1 year, and I am working well. The center, I have nothing to complain. My headquarters is super happy. They are saying that we are doing a good job, but yeah, I am losing something. Yeah, this is just what I wanted to say on top of what you said, all of you.
If I might add, I'm Ciprian Dan, talking from the Romanian perspective. I'm the president of ABS Romania. So indeed, online remote working, it's working for now.
Yeah.
Like Hervé said, it's working. Our industry is more than fortunate to be able to work from home, probably somewhere between 80 to 95, even 100%. But also, like Hervé said, it's about for how long? How long can you sustain this? How long the mental health of everybody can sustain this? This is the only question which needs to be addressed right now by every company in the sector.
Well, if I might say, my mother told me this story when she was young and the house was occupied by the occupying force back then. She was living in the Netherlands and the force came from the east, suffice to say. She went into the fields and collected grass, and she sucked on the grass to get some type of milk-like liquid. My point is, it's not just my mother, who's a great person, of course, but to your point, Cyprian, I think it's right, but I would suggest that mankind has been proven to be very resilient, and that we do not break that easily, even under circumstances where physical nutrition becomes a problem. Thank God we are not there yet. So, like Romek, I'd like to end this because we need to go to the next sessions, but I'd like to end this on a positive theme. Well, first of all, location is not dead yet, so we will meet again on these kind of topics. But I think also that if our centers proved resilient, and you gave the example, Cyprian, we've got examples from other people, how solutions have been developed. I think that the future, it cannot get worse. Maybe the physical movement can be further restricted for a while, but at least now we know how to survive as individuals. Is it optimal? Is it great? No, but do we get by? Yes. Our centers get by. And we have also cities adapting to the new challenges, like we learned from Bydgoszcz. So I think that indeed we should stay upbeat. Let's not try to think that it's going to be easy, but let's look back. We've been working so far under difficult circumstances, running a center in Krakow from beautiful France. Really, people do extraordinary things. Thank you very much for your extraordinary contributions to this conversation. I hope to see you live one of these days, one of these months, one of these years. And thank you again, wishing you a very good continuation of the CEE BSC Executives Roundtables. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
So where do we go now? I had